we're going to dive into our first session. We're going to look at Magtein for brain health and brain cognitive longevity, presented by Dr. Rafea Naffa. He is the Director of R&D at 3Tech, and he works on the science behind Magtein, which is known for its cognitive health benefits. So I'm going to turn the stage over now. Post your questions in the Q&A as they come up, and we'll get to them at the end.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the AIDP Innovation Day 2025. My name is Rafea. I'm the Director of R&D for 3Tech. I'll be starting the AIDP Innovation Day with session 1, which I will be presenting Magtein for brain health and brain cognitive aging. What are we going to cover? We will go through a few slides for magnesium and health first. Then we will be talking about Magtein, our branded ingredient, magnesium supplement, 15 years of science discovery and innovation. Then actually most of the slides, most of my talk will be having a really good focus on our new clinical study 2025, which have a really big focus on cognition and sleep. Then we will be touching on Magtein and the brain cognitive aging. Then we're going to leave of course, some time for Q&As. Magnesium and health. Now, magnesium is a critical mineral for our body because it's involved in more than 300 plus enzymatic processes. And those processes basically spans over energy production, protein synthesis, DNA, RNA maintenance, even supports bone structure, muscle helps in the muscle contraction, and of course, normal heart rhythm. And critically, magnesium is directly involved in the brain function, which includes regulation of neurotransmitters. Now, the recommended daily uptake of magnesium for adults, men need around 400 to 420 milligram per day, while women need around 310 to 320 milligram per day. Of course, pregnant women or breastfeeding, they may have more need for daily magnesium. What about health benefits? As I said on the top, magnesium is involved in a really large number of those enzymatic processes or metabolic processes in the body, which means it's involved in cardiovascular health, even regulating the glucose, the blood glucose, bone health, because it just helps basically and supports the utilization of vitamin D, and more importantly, the brain health, because it's directly involved in the energy of the brain cells, of course, the cognitive and neurological function. What about deficiencies and risks? A recent study in 2024 reported that 1 out of 3 people, they don't meet their daily magnesium intake. And this gonna put really some groups at high risk, such as old adults, people with gastrointestinal diseases, diabetic people, and alcohol or smokers. Now, what about the symptoms? How can people feel or know they may having magnesium deficiency? Some of the symptoms are fatigue, because as I said, magnesium is directly involved in energy, numbness, muscle contractions and cramps, and of course, mood swings. And this can go into severe or extreme deficiencies, such as heart rhythms or abnormal heart rhythms, and even seizures. Now, I'm going to take you through sort of a journey from a digestion to the cognition, where magnesium basically gets consumed orally, then finds its way into the brain. Actually, it's a very complex process because it just starts with oral ingestion and digestion, then finds its way into the small intestine, which basically requires a really good solubility of the magnesium supplementation. After that, the absorption or the movement or the transfer of the magnesium from the gut into the plasma requires basically the magnesium to go through this barrier, which is basically the passive diffusion and active transportation of the magnesium from gut into the blood. Now, in the blood, magnesium exists in different forms. It can be free magnesium ions, or it can be complexed with proteins. After that, for magnesium to find its way into the brain, it should go through the blood-brain barrier. And this is the most challenging part of magnesium journey into the brain. Because this barrier is very selective for nutrients. Not only selective for nutrients. Actually, the magnesium concentrations in the blood is lower than the magnesium concentration in the brain. This is why magnesium should go basically from a low concentration or low levels in the blood through the blood-brain barrier into the brain. And this is very challenging as the science reported before. It doesn't stop here actually, then the magnesium should go through another active transportation to find its way inside the brain cells. And you can see clearly the journey of the magnesium. It's very complex to get inside the brain, which will support the structural and functional benefits in the brain. The good news is MACtin. MACtin can basically, it's a very soluble supplement, can pass basically all those obstacles and can effectively increase the brain magnesium levels in the brain neurons. Now, why is that? Why MACtin has this unique function? Now, this is the MACtin structure. It's a magnesium bound to threonate molecules. Now, what is threonate? Threonate here is a natural metabolite of vitamin C. This is the vitamin C here. It can naturally transform by specific enzymes into threonic acid. And threonic acid, it's found naturally in the plasma and the brain. However, the levels of the threonic acid in the brain, or CSF, cerebrospinal fluid, it's around 5 times higher than the levels of the threonic acid in the plasma. Now, taking MACtin has shown that it can effectively increase the levels of the magnesium in the brain. And it was shown that this is driven by a very unique mechanism that is facilitated by the L-threonate, which basically drives the magnesium delivery in the brain and effectively increasing the brain magnesium. Now, when you look at the MACtin or the birth of MACtin in 2010, this is where the discovery of MACtin. And in this actually publication, which is really an excellent journal, published in an excellent journal, Neuron, and very well cited, this is a really good figure showing that the oral MACtin supplementation was the only way that effectively increases the levels of the magnesium in the brain after 24 days in the animal model. In 2016, the mechanism was explained by looking at the threonate role. As I showed you before, threonate, what makes really MACtin unique, because threonate is a key for the magnesium delivery inside the brain via a very, I would say, complex process through glucose transporters. And this work actually has dived into the details of the mechanism of the action. From 2016 to 2024, there were several human clinical studies done on MACtin that showed basically a significant improvement in the cognitive functions, in the sleep quality, in the working memory, learning, and other aspects of cognitive functions, as I said. Actually, this year, which is, I will be talking in details about this study, which is our new study 2025. In 2024, actually, it was shown that, again, MACtin can reverse basically the old brain to look like the young brain. I will be touching on this soon. Now, our new study, 2025, it's a clinical study that measured cognition and sleep. To give you an overview of the study, This is a double-blind, randomized controlled trial, which is the gold standard of any clinical study, where basically you use two groups, control group, which is 50, we have used 50 participants, and placebo group, another 50 participants, the age between 18 to 45 years old. The duration of the study was 6 weeks. So the control group has basically taken 2 grams day of MAC10 in 2 dosages, 1 gram in the morning and 1 gram in the evening. While the placebo group did not take MAC10 and they took an inactive ingredient. At the beginning of the study, those participants were asked to do some assessments. And the assessments included the NIH Toolbox Cognition Battery Assessment, which basically measures the executive function of the brain, including memory, learning, attention, language, and knowledge. Another assessments were promise sleep, which measures basically the sleep quality and the daytime activity after having basically a really good sleep or poor sleep at night. Then Oura-ring, which measures some physiological functions. Then we have measured as well the 3D AIM trainer score, which measures the hand-eye coordination. So those participants were asked to do those assessments at the beginning of the study, then after 6 weeks of taking MAC10. Some of the other assessments, we asked the participants to actually do the assessment during the study at week 2 and week 4. Let's talk about the results. The first one, which is the NIH Toolbox Cognition Battery. The figure on the right here shows clearly basically the final results or the impact of the MAC10 on the total cognition score over 6 weeks. This shows clearly that MAC10 significantly improved the total cognition score over placebo over 6 weeks. It's very important to know that the total cognition score here, it's the sum of 7 different assessments. And those assessments cover basically fluid memory and crystallized memory, which, as I said before, it includes executive function, for example, the working memory, episodic memory, processing speed, attention, language, and knowledge. And this actually test shows clear that MAC10, after 6 weeks on a 2 grams per day dose, significantly improved basically the total cognition score. Getting back to the next assessment we have done, which is the promise sleep. What is promise sleep? Promise sleep is a validated measure actually that measures sleep quality, sleep duration, or the disturbances in the sleep, how good you're sleeping, or even the daytime function after or the day after. Now, if you look at those 2 figures, the one on the left shows basically the sleep impairment. The sleep impairment represents or reflects how good or how sleep is impacting your life, basically. When you wake up, and how do you feel just the day after the day of sleeping, how you feel about how productive you can be. The sleep disturbance is how well you are sleeping that night. Now, looking at the results, MAC10 after 6 weeks significantly improved the sleep impairment, which means basically when you have really, when you woke up from sleep, the next day you feel productive, you feel refreshed, and basically this is what really MAC10 helps here in the study or shows in the study. Actually, in the sleep disturbance in the full population, it was not significant. However, we have decided basically do a post-analysis where we have taken only the population in this study with poor sleep, and based on the baseline, of course. And those population fits within the 75% 5 percentile. On those population, actually, the MAC-10 significantly improved both the sleep impairment score and the sleep disturbance score. What does this mean? This strongly suggests that those population having subjective qualitative sleep issues, they could benefit better from MAC-10. What about Oura ring? Now, Oura ring was used in the study to collect some physiological data of the participants, or the 100 participants we mentioned. At the end of the study, we looked at the resting heart rate, which is basically how many heartbeats you have at rest, and the heart rate variability, which is basically, I would say, the timing between the two consecutive heartbeats. Now, in both measures, MAC-10 actually significantly reduced the resting heart rate and increased the heart rate variability. What does this mean? Looking at each one of those, the heart rate reflects the function, our heart function, which basically reflects a better cardiovascular fitness. This shows it clearly, basically, MAC-10 after 6 weeks, basically giving you basically better heart rate, which means healthier cardiovascular health. Looking at the heart rate variability, this reflects actually the time between two consecutive heartbeats. And this measures is a key indicator for the autonomic nervous system. And of course, the higher heart rate variability, the healthier you will be. And you're going to have basically a more control between the sympathetic stress-related heartbeat and the parasympathetic, which is the rest and digest activity. And in both measures, MAC-10 significantly basically improved the health. Now, when we measured the 3D aim trainer, which is the hand-eye coordination, as I said at the beginning of the study at week 0, then at week 6, actually MAC-10 has improved the score of the 3D aim trainer, which is basically the number of the effective hits that the participants has done during the test. MAC-10, you can see it in green here, has significantly improved the number of the hits, which means it increases the focus or the hand-eye coordination or the speed aiming to those scores. Now, if you look at the placebo, placebo actually, it got worse. And looking basically at the p-value, MAC-10 significantly improved the hand-eye coordination score. Now, I know this was too much. This is why this actually slide summarizes the key findings of the study. The key findings are, as I said, just to go over them again, MAC-10 significantly improved the total cognitive performance, which, as I said, this has basically 7 different cognition measurements. MAC-10 improved basically sleep-related outcomes, which is, as I said, the sleep-related impairment score. MAC-10 improved both the sleep-related impairment and sleep disturbance scores in these poor subjective, those population that they have poor sleep score. MAC-10 actually significantly even, as I said, improved the heart health, which is measured by the resting heart rate and the heart rate variability. MAC-10 improved the hand-eye coordination and the reaction time, which has improved basically the number of the effective hits during the assessment. And of course, improved the brain cognitive aging, which is I will be covering in the next slide. Looking at the MAC-10 for brain cognitive aging. Now, before I would be talking about MAG10. It's very important to know the role of the magnesium in the neuronal communication. Now, this is our brain. If you zoom in at the brain, you can see those neurons. And of course, the brain is made of trillions of those neurons. And the main function of those neurons actually is just moving the action potential, just moving the electricity in the brain. Now, zoom in between those two, the end here, the end and the beginning of the two neuron cells, you can see a gap. This gap is called synapse. And this gap actually which controls the movement of the action potential. And actually the action potential is carried by a flux of calcium ions. Now, what's the role of the magnesium? If we look at the presynaptic inside here, as I said before, magnesium is involved in many enzymatic processes. One of them is energy production and protein synthesis. So in the presynaptic, magnesium supports the production of energy in those neurons. If you look at the postsynaptic, which is here, there's this gate, and this gate actually allows the movement of the calcium ions. Magnesium ions sits in the middle of this gate. The role of those magnesiums, they work to control the flux of the calcium ions. And in biochemistry, we call it antagonist. So magnesium is an antagonist for calcium. Those are some of the roles of the magnesium in the brain. And of course, magnesium is involved in the regulation of the neurotransmitters as well. And this is how magnesium is important for brain health and brain aging, of course. Now, research shows there are three figures here, and those three figures shows a direct link or correlation between brain cognitive aging and magnesium and synaptic density and aging, of course. The one on the left here shows a decline of the cognitive abilities over age. As everyone knows on the call, as we age, our cognitive ability declines, including speed of processing information, or even the working memory, which is remembering, or even identifying directions. All those skills, fluid skills, they decline with age. If you look at the figure in the middle, which is another research in 2001, this actually research shows a decline in the synaptic density with aging. As we age, our synaptic density, the way basically we store information, the way we process information, the way we remember information, the density goes down, so all those abilities will decline as well with age. The figure on the right shows a correlation actually between the brain magnesium and age. This figure shows as we age, it appears that the brain magnesium levels decline. And this is where basically it's very important to know, as I said previously, magnesium has a critical role in how your brain functions. However, as we age, magnesium levels drop, the synaptic density declines, and of course, we start having issues with some of cognitive abilities. And this is where actually MAG10 does this very well. In 2024, this study, which is published in Nature Communications, which is a really excellent journal, shows oral supplementation using MAG10 in animal models restores basically the cognitive thinking, the cognitive function of old animal to look like young animal, which actually resulted in an improved learning and memory. And you can see here the curve or the plot on the figure on the right, the green bar here, the green box represents the young brain. The black represents the old brain, while the red represents the old brain after taking MAC10 or with MAC10 treatment. This shows clearly some proteins. There is a special stain that used to stain some proteins in the brain, and those proteins supports the brain basically cognitive function. This shows clearly basically in most or all the proteins, MAC10 has managed to restore basically the levels of those proteins to look like the levels we have in the young brains. And this was in the animal model. In the human clinical studies, actually, MAC10 shows to support actually brain cognitive aging in 3 studies. In 2016, this study had 51 participants, and the assessment done here was Trail Making Test B. It's a name, it's a type of the assessment that can measures basically the cognitive health of the brain, which can predict the brain cognitive aging. In 2022, we had 102 participants, and the name of the test was a clinical memory test. In 2025, I just shared with you some of the results of this study from the NIH Cognition Battery. Let me go through each one of those and show you how MAC10 can support brain cognitive aging. In this study, in 2016, the participants were asked to do this assessment, trail making test assessment, at the beginning of the study and at the end of the study after 12 weeks. MAC10 significantly improved the score by 10%. So looking at this curve, actually, the red dot here represents the cognitive age of the participants of the study at the beginning of the study. Now, after 12 weeks of taking MAC10, there was a significant improvement in the score of the trail making test B, which actually predicted or normalized or translated to the cognitive age, which was equivalent to a reduction or a reverse in the cognitive aging by 9 years. And this study, a human clinical study, shows actually that MAC10 supports healthier brain cognitive aging. Looking at the second study, which is 2022, this study actually did not predict the age directly, but this study actually shows that the older population or the older participants that they have done this assessment, which is the clinical memory test assessment at week 0, then they start taking MAC10 around 2 grams per day, and it was a blend. After 30 days, they have redone the test. And what we have measured that the older population, they managed to score higher scores of the clinical memory test, you can see clearly, which means older participants, they have benefited more from MAC10. And this is another support that MAC10 support brain cognitive aging. The recent study, which is basically the total NIH cognitive score, again, the same concept. Those participants done the assessment at week 0, then they have done the assessment at week 6. Then the difference in the score between MAC10 and a placebo was 2.236, and it was significant, as I showed you before. And using basically the decline, this curve actually shows the decline of the total cognition raw score with age. And this can be basically translated into the brain cognitive age, as I said before. Using this difference, which is the improvement MAC10 made, which is 2.2 in the total NIH cognitive score, this was equivalent to 7.5 years healthier or younger, I would say younger, cognitive brain or cognitive age, brain cognitive age. And this clearly basically confirms, those three studies confirms the role of the MAC10 to support the healthy brain cognitive aging, which has been done by three different clinical studies with three different assessments. I will basically conclude my talk with this exciting results for MAC10. Then I will basically open the floor for any questions. Thank you very much, and I will be around to answering your questions.
All right, thank you. Excellent. We do have questions coming in, and we're also going to be joined by Zach from AIDP to help field questions that are coming in. So you can both join me on our virtual stage now. And everyone, please post your questions into the Q&A box and we'll get to those. But first, we have a quick poll question for our audience. Question for you guys. What is your main reason for taking magnesium health supplements? So many great reasons to take magnesium. But your main reason, is it for better sleep, stress and anxiety, energy, focus, and memory support, muscle and bone health, or some other reason that you take it? And if there's something else, jot it into the chat and try to shout it out there. So do we have the poll up? There we go. Okay, somebody did add burnout. That's a good one in today's day and age for sure. Burnout is something, I mean, I'm going to throw sleep in my reasons for taking it, but all the other benefits are amazing as well. So let's see what we have here. Main reasons for taking magnesium. Or the pop-up box didn't come up. So we're having all sorts of fun things today. Okay, stress and anxiety, yes. Okay, number one is actually energy, focus, and memory support, 30%, stress and anxiety, 27%, then better sleep, that's my group with you guys, and muscle and bone and other, as we said, we got burnout, common sleep in the comments. So many great benefits. All right, let's get to your questions. We have comments coming in about what a great presentation that was. So thank you for that. Questions coming in were asked, are there any side effects for taking MAG-10?
Hi, everyone. Based on what we have done with the animal, because, MAC10, we've done a lot of safety studies at the very beginning, which those safety go through animal models, then we moved into human, as I showed you. We have not basically observed or measured any side effects of MAC10, but generally speaking, not about MAC10, about magnesium. Magnesium is controlled, or the homeostasis in the magnesium of the body is controlled through the kidney. So if you have really get a really large dose of magnesium, like, some other supplements, this might put pressure really on your kidney. So we always advise basically taking magnesium supplementation, consult with your medical doctor. However, for MAC10, because the dose is less than 40% of the recommended daily dose, so MAC10 dose actually of elemental magnesium is very modest, is very low, with a really big impact. So this is for the MAC10, yeah.
All right, lots of questions coming in. I'm going to ask people if you can put the questions into the Q&A panel. They're just much easier to manage there. But if you already have it in the chat, I have it here. I'm working through those too. We were asked about what is the best time to take MAG-10?
Yeah, this is a recurring question from many of the people, or I would say millions of people taking MAG10 globally, and always we have this question. As you've seen, basically magnesium, benefits or claims spans over, brain energy, sleep, cognitive. So it's all basically about taking those 2 grams per day. So what the time of taking magnesium, for example, if you're really after focus, support your brain fog during the day, just when you woke up in the morning, just take 2 grams, depending on the dose of your supplement of MAC10, which really keeps you going all the way through the day, having this kind of productivity and energy. However, if you think, you know what, I'm good with energy, but I need, as your audience, some of your audience already, they wanted to take MAC10 just for sleep, and you are one of them, Maggie, I suggest you take the MAC10 just 1 or 2 hours before you go to bed. We can promise you're going to have a really great sleep quality. You're not going to have actually longer sleep, we can promise you, but you're going to sleep better with high quality and you're going to wake up fresh in the next day.
Excellent. All right. We're also asked how many studies included female subjects and across multiple ethnic groups?
This is another good question. Now, when you run the randomized clinical study, randomized the RCT, which is the golden standard, usually when you do the randomization, you need to have a balanced population between males and female. So most of the study you've seen, actually, we have a balanced population, or sorry, gender in the study. Regarding basically I would say the type of the population or geographically, our studies actually they've done in US and in Australia. So far those are the two basically location where our studies were done.
All right. Question about anything regarding any contraindications or interactions with other ingredients.
What I can say, generally speaking, Mactin, as I said, provides this modest elemental magnesium dose, daily dose, with really big impact. As magnesium itself, there is no really known interaction direct with any other supplements and drugs. But again, as I said at the beginning, just always consult your doctor in order just to take magnesium. But magnesium actually it has particularly Mactin, it has a great synergy with a large basically number of actives because as I said magnesium involved in more than 300 processes in the body, which tells you basically it can go very well by itself. As I showed you, Mactin can go very well by itself. It's going to be like a hero, one of those Avengers, like, an Iron Man. It could be an Iron Man by itself, Mactin, or guess what? It could be part of the Avengers like other actives. So just the way you like to use it, just it's a Mactin. It's a very powerful magnesium supplement.
Excellent. And a study on animal testing. Any plans to discontinue animal testing?
Absolutely. Always, basically, this is where basically we have the R&D team. We always committed to science, and this is where basically we provide you with the science-backed evidence. We need really to do more mechanistic studies to position Mactin uniquely. Although, as I showed you, basically, we have more than 15 peer-reviewed publications just studied Mactin at every single level you can think of, but we never stop because we believe Mactin still holds more potential, not only as, support your brain. We utterly believe Mactin can, support your general wellness and gives you the right dose of your magnesium, which really support your magnesium level status in the body, which can support your general health. So we'll keep basically looking at the mechanistic and doing more human clinical study to support our current claims and basically looking at more claims in the market. Sorry, Zach, I'm on Mactin today, mate. I go fast, so you
Hey,
need to stop me.
all good, all good. You're doing great. Yeah, no, it's you're answering the questions great. And on that question on when to take Mactine, Mactine being so formulation and format flexible, there are so many brands out there that are using Mactine, but I would say pick the right product. There are brands that are co-formulating with sleep ingredients, so botanical extracts, for example, adaptogens, and then there are brands that are formulating with phosphatidylserine and cognizin, which are more I would say those are probably better taken during the day. So look at the other ingredients in the formulation, but as Rafea said, Mactine works wonders both during the daytime as well as nighttime. And for me, I take it when I am jet lagged and flying across from Europe to the US. It helps with the sleeping through that night just by taking Mactine. So
Excellent. All right. We do need to move on to our next sessions, but I want to ask one more question. And to anybody who didn't get their questions answered, Team AIDP will definitely follow up with you. But one more question, because it kind of sets us up for a teaser for a future session that we'll have coming up later in the show. But we're asked, what are the differences between Magtine and the Atom Mag in terms of bioavailability and indication? So maybe we could just kind of set up and then say we'll dive into that more.
Yeah, but I can address this quick. Zach, please add after that. But Mactin has a really elemental magnesium with L-threonate. And as I showed you, L-threonate has basically this complex mechanism in the transportation and the delivery of the magnesium from the blood inside the brain. But if you look at the Atamag has still the elemental magnesium, but with the acetyltaurinate, or we call it activated taurine. And we have really cool claims or benefits around activated taurine. I'll hand over to Zach to comment on that as well.
Indeed. Yeah. You got it in a nutshell, and we'll talk more about it in the future talk. But in short, Mactine with the threonic acid being able to really pull the magnesium into the neurons, we're able to see cognitive health benefits and being able to have a stronger memory and so on. But with the magnesium acetyltaurinate, that acetyltaurine group is actually the majority of the ingredient. And with the study that we'll preview, we'll discuss during today's Innovation Day, that acetyltaurine is having benefits beyond brain bioavailability. That's improving both from a weight management perspective as well as mood. So I'd say that the magnesium acetyltaurinate is more beneficial for calmness, but not the cognition that you're getting with Mactine. Mactine can provide both better sleep, better mood, as well as cognitive and function.
Maggie, I can sum it up. Look at me. I'm full of energy. I'm just running. I represent Mac 10 today. Zach, very calm, so sweet. This is the guy at the Mac, if this makes
Yeah,
sense.
yeah. I took out of it. Yes.
I love it. The
Well
perfect
done.
representatives. Perfect. All right. Well, thank you both.